If American agriculture is celebrated for turning the future into reality, then Japan has amazed the world by transforming its past into lasting value. The clearest proof lies in its traditional cuisine. Centuries-old recipes have not only preserved the soul of Japanese culture, but have also dominated global culinary rankings, generated tens of billions of dollars in economic value, and attracted more than 36 million international visitors every year. So what has allowed these ancient recipes to survive the test of time and become enduring symbols of an entire nation's identity? Today, join Agriculture Insight as we journey into Japan's traditional artisan villages, where time continues to live on through the hands of skilled craftsmen, generations of closely guarded techniques, and the unwavering belief that every dish is more than just a recipe, it's the soul of a culture. Once believed to be a food of the gods, mochi has remained at the heart of Japanese traditions for over 1,000 years, playing an essential role in sacred rituals and New Year celebrations. Yet this simple glutinous rice cake has long since journeyed beyond temples and festivals, evolving into a global culinary icon and driving a market valued at nearly $400 million. The journey to making Japan's famously soft and chewy mochi begins in the rice fields of Niigata, home to mochi gome, a special variety of glutinous rice rich in amylopectin. This unique starch gives the steamed rice its signature stickiness and remarkable elasticity, making it the ideal ingredient for mochi. About a month after the seedlings are first cultivated, they are transplanted into the paddies. In traditional farming villages, farmers still use a wooden planting guide known as the taue jogi to keep each row perfectly aligned. On modern farms, however, automated rice transplanters ensure consistent spacing and planting depth with far greater efficiency. As the lush green paddies gradually turn a brilliant golden yellow, the harvest season begins. Unlike wheat harvesters designed for dry fields, Japan's rice harvesters are specially engineered to operate in soft, waterlogged paddies. Wide tracks or flotation wheels, automatic leveling systems, and stable cutting and threshing mechanisms allow the machines to work efficiently, even when water reaches halfway up the wheels. Within seconds, the rice grains are separated from the straw and transferred into sealed storage tanks to minimize moisture exposure. From the rice fields, the mochigome is transported to processing facilities, where it is milled, cleaned, and prepared as the glutinous rice used to make mochi. First, the rice is thoroughly washed and then steamed until each grain becomes soft, while retaining its signature stickiness and elasticity. Next, while the rice is still piping hot, it is immediately transferred into a mortar, where the first stage of pounding begins. Using slow, heavy strikes with a wooden mallet, the craftsman gradually breaks down the grain structure, compressing the loose cooked rice into a single dense, cohesive mass. Once the rice has formed a cohesive mass, the fine pounding stage begins. The rhythm of the mallet becomes faster and more consistent, while an assistant continuously folds, turns, and moistens the dough between every strike. This prevents the mochi from sticking to the mortar, keeps its surface from drying out, and ensures a smooth, uniformly elastic texture. More like a dangerous performance than a cooking process, this tightly synchronized rhythm allows the mochi to be kneaded, stretched, and compressed in a way that is difficult for machines to fully replicate. Throughout the process, the team shouts "yoisho" to coordinate every movement, maintain safety, and transform this traditional craft into a display of remarkable precision and teamwork. Today, many workshops use high-capacity pounding machines to produce smooth, elastic mochi dough more quickly and consistently. Even so, handmade mochi remains highly prized, as many Japanese believe that no machine can fully replicate the craftsman's rhythm, the warmth of freshly pounded rice, or the delicate touch of human hands. Whether made by hand or by machine, the finished mochi dough is fed into a portioning machine where it is cut into uniform pieces before being rolled into balls. Each piece is then coated with soybean flour or starch to prevent sticking and filled with a variety of ingredients, ranging from traditional sweet red bean paste to strawberries, mangoes, or fresh cream. Ironically, the same chewy texture that makes mochi so beloved also makes it a choking hazard. Every year in Japan, hundreds of choking incidents are linked to mochi, particularly among older adults during the New Year holiday. Leaving behind the land of chewy mochi, we arrive in Kyoto, where rice is no longer pounded into cakes but awakened by koji, the centuries-old mold that gives life to sake, Japan's national drink. Unlike mochi gome, sake is made from sakamai, a special rice variety with large grains, a thick starchy core, and fewer impurities. After harvest, the rice is polished for hours to remove the bran, proteins, and fats. For premium's sake, more than 70% of each grain may be milled away, leaving only the pure white core for the fermentation process. After polishing, the rice is placed into large cloth bags and repeatedly washed in cold water to remove any remaining bran powder from the surface. It is then soaked for a precisely controlled amount of time, as absorbing even slightly too much or too little water can prevent the grains from developing the ideal structure for fermentation. Once the rice has absorbed the right amount of moisture, it is steamed at nearly 100 degrees, 212 degrees Fair, for 40 to 60 minutes. The goal is not to cook it into soft rice, but to produce grains with a dry surface, a moist interior, and a firm texture that can withstand the fermentation process without breaking apart. Immediately afterward, the hot steamed rice is transferred to a specialized cooling system, where a continuous flow of air lowers the temperature evenly across every grain. Once it reaches around 35 to 40, 95 to 140, workers sprinkle Aspergillus oryzae spores over the rice and gently mix it to ensure the mold coats each grain evenly. This is the creation of koji, the soul of sake, and a fermentation technique that dates back more than 1,200 years to Japan's Nara period. Before the Japanese mastered koji cultivation, sake was once made by chewing rice and spitting it into large vessels, allowing enzymes in human saliva to convert starch into sugar. Today, that unusual practice has been replaced by a carefully controlled microbial process carried out inside the muro, the traditional koji cultivation room. Here, the rice is covered with cloth and incubated for 48 to 72 hours. Allowing microscopic mold filaments to grow deep into each grain. As they spread, they form the rice's signature white coating, while releasing enzymes that break down starch into fermentable sugars. Once the koji is fully developed, it is combined with steamed rice, water, and sake yeast to create the yeast starter, moto. Over the next 2 to 4 weeks, the yeast multiplies to a concentration of hundreds of millions of cells per milliliter. After the starter becomes stable, it is transferred to the Moromi fermentation tank, where additional steamed rice, koji, and water are added in 3 separate stages over 4 days. Unlike Russian vodka, which relies primarily on distillation, or French wine, which depends on the natural sugars found in grapes, Japanese sake is unique because 2 processes occur simultaneously inside the same tank. Koji continuously converts rice starch into sugar, while yeast immediately transforms that sugar into alcohol. This multiple parallel fermentation is the secret behind sake's remarkable depth of flavor, clean finish, and naturally high alcohol content. After several weeks, the main mash is pressed to separate the young sake from the spent rice solids. The freshly extracted sake is then filtered, gently pasteurized, and aged to soften its sharpness, while allowing its complex aromas and flavors to mature before bottling. For the Japanese, sake is far more than an alcoholic beverage. It is a symbol of festivals, sacred rituals, and family gatherings, carrying more than 1,000 years of tradition in every drop. Fueled by the popularity of Starbucks, TikTok, and modern beverage chains, matcha has grown into a multi-billion-dollar industry, expanding by nearly 10% each year and becoming one of the fastest-growing drinks in the world. Yet few people realize that long before it appeared in lattes and desserts, matcha first arrived in Japan through Buddhist temples, passed through the hands of samurai, and evolved into one of the country's most refined cultural symbols. To understand why Japanese matcha has become the world's most sought-after green tea, we need to travel to the tea-growing mountains of Aichi, where the Japanese begin shaping its flavor long before the leaves ever reach a factory. Instead of waiting until processing begins, they carefully influence the tea while every leaf is still growing on the plant. Unlike most crops that thrive under full sunlight, Japanese tea growers do the exact opposite. Around April, they cover the tea plants with dark shade cloths that block up to 90% of the sunlight. This artificial shade stimulates the leaves to produce more chlorophyll and accumulate higher levels of L-theanine, giving matcha its deep emerald color, naturally sweet umami flavor, and rich, lingering finish that sun-grown tea simply cannot match. After 3 to 4 weeks of shading, the real selection process begins. For ceremonial-grade matcha, workers do not harvest the entire tea bush. Instead, they carefully pick only the top 2 or 3 young leaves, where the foliage is the most tender, least fibrous, and richest in flavor. By contrast, many lower-grade matcha products are harvested using mechanical cutters that move across the tops of the tea rows. High-speed blades, combined with suction systems or conveyor belts, collect large volumes of leaves at once. While this method is faster and far more economical for mass production, it often gathers older leaves, stems, and tougher fibers as well, resulting in a powder that is less silky, more bitter, and lighter in color than matcha made from carefully hand-selected leaves. Immediately after harvesting, the tea leaves must be transported to the processing facility as quickly as possible to preserve their freshness before oxidation begins to dull their vibrant color and delicate aroma. Once at the factory, the leaves are spread into thin layers, gently cooled, and then steamed for 20 to 40 seconds. This brief steaming process halts oxidation, locking in the leaves' vivid green color while reducing their natural bitterness. Next, unlike most green teas that are rolled into tight curls, matcha leaves are dried flat at temperatures as of around 80 to 100 degrees Celsius. The goal is not to create an attractive shape, but to preserve the integrity of the leaf for the grinding stage. By keeping the leaves flat, they retain the ideal structure needed to produce the exceptionally fine powder that defines authentic matcha. Once the stems and leaf veins have been almost completely removed, only the pure leaf flesh remains. It is then slowly ground using granite stone mills, rotating at just 30 to 60 revolutions per minute. A single stone mill produces only 30 to 40 grams of matcha per hour, but this slow grinding process minimizes heat buildup, helping preserve the powder's vibrant green color, delicate aroma, and signature ultrafine texture. After the powder reaches a perfectly uniform consistency, it is sealed in airtight packaging to protect it from light, oxygen, and moisture. In Japan, however, matcha is far more than just a beverage. It embodies the spirit of the Japanese tea ceremony. The Japanese believe that every tea gathering is a once-in-a-lifetime moment, so every movement from preparing the tea to drinking it is performed slowly, mindfully, and with complete presence. Few people know that during Japan's Edo period, wasabi was a rare and closely guarded delicacy, reserved exclusively for feudal lords, and served only at the most prestigious banquets. More than 400 years later, it has become a global symbol of sushi, driving a market worth nearly $500 million. So what made wasabi so highly prized? The answer lies in its one-of-a-kind pungency. Unlike chili peppers that burn the tongue, wasabi sends a sharp, aromatic heat straight up the nose, awakening every sense within seconds. To discover how the Japanese create this refined yet intensely powerful flavor, let's travel to Shizuoka Prefecture, where crystal-clear mountain streams have nurtured wasabi for centuries. Often regarded as one of the most difficult crops in the world to cultivate, wasabi embodies the Japanese pursuit of perfection. While many plants can thrive in fertile soil, wasabi will only grow in cold, crystal-clear water with temperatures that remain remarkably stable throughout the year. In Shizuoka, the water that nourishes the plants has spent years filtering through layers of rock before reaching the roots. Before planting can even begin, farmers must build a specialized riverbed beneath the flowing water. Large stones are laid at the bottom to guide the current, while multiple layers of gravel above allow water and oxygen to circulate freely around the roots. Only after this carefully engineered bed is stable are the young wasabi seedlings transplanted by hand at precise intervals. When harvest season arrives, farmers wade into the icy water to gently lift each rhizome from the gravel, taking great care not to damage the plant's delicate structure. Immediately after harvesting, the wasabi is carefully washed, trimmed, and prepared for processing. Unlike industrial condiments, real wasabi is not pre-ground. Instead, it is traditionally grated just moments before serving to release its signature pungent aroma and fresh, complex flavor. This unique characteristic makes authentic wasabi extremely difficult to commercialize. Not only is it challenging to cultivate, with low yields and high production costs, but its flavor also fades quickly after processing. As a result, the food industry developed a substitute made from horseradish, mustard, and green food coloring, meaning that more than 90% of the wasabi served around the world is actually an imitation designed to replicate the original taste. Even so, genuine wasabi remains irreplaceable in Japanese cuisine, a once closely guarded secret that has evolved into a global culinary icon. At the first stop of our journey, we arrive at the Arita Mikan orchards in Wakayama, where premium boxes of mandarins can sell for as much as $70 per kilogram, comparable to the price of regular Wagyu beef in Japan. Unlike the flatland citrus farms of the United States, Arita Mikan are grown on mountainsides facing the sea, where the fast-draining soil forces the trees to concentrate sugars, while reflected sunlight helps the fruit receive even exposure, creating a sweetness that flatland farming struggles to achieve. From late October to early December, when the harvest season begins, the steep and narrow terrain leaves machinery almost entirely out of the process, forcing nearly everything to be done by hand. Instead of harvesting in bulk like the large industrial orchards on flat plains, Arita Mikan growers use specialized scissors to cut close to the stem with precision repeated thousands of times each day, preserving the fruit's extremely thin layer of essential oils, a factor that directly affects both storage life and commercial value. Each hour, a skilled farmer can harvest around 80 to 120 kilograms of mandarins, constantly observing the color, the tightness of the peel, and the level of sunlight exposure on each fruit to determine the exact moment it reaches peak sweetness. Once detached from the branches, the mandarins are immediately placed into lightweight plastic crates positioned along the hillside, where every movement must be fast enough to maintain the pace of the harvest, while still careful enough to avoid tiny impacts that could reduce the fruit's quality after only a few days of transport. On mountain slopes steeper than 30 degrees, the harvested mandarins must be transported down by hand or through miniature rail systems attached to the hillsides, making the Arita Mikan season resemble a massive manual logistics operation. From the mountainside, the mandarins are quickly transferred into the processing line, where around 70% of the premium-grade harvest is packed and shipped the very same day to preserve maximum freshness. The rest is immediately sent for juice production before the fruit's natural sweetness begins to decline. Each year, Japan produces around 700,000 tons of mikan, generating billions of dollars in revenue for the country's fruit industry. Leaving behind the vibrant Arita mikan orchards, we continue our journey to Sekaiichi, one of the world's most prestigious pear varieties, regarded as a symbol of luxury and refinement, generating around 10 billion USD each year. The journey of a Sekaiichi pear usually begins in March and April, when the entire branch system is carefully trained horizontally along low steel frames, creating a plane of light that allows every cluster of blossoms to receive even sunlight from the very first stage of budding. When the flowers bloom, growers use soft brushes to transfer pollen between compatible varieties instead of relying entirely on bees. Around 7 to 10 days after fruit set, transparent covers are pulled above the trellis system to stabilize temperature and prevent early seasonal rain from damaging the delicate skin as it forms. Soon after, wind-assisted mist sprayers move along the tree rows, creating a thin protective layer that reaches deep into every level of the canopy. By harvest season, each pear is separated from the branch using specialized curved-tip scissors and immediately placed into soft fabric bags to preserve the fruit's highly refined surface. For certain special orders, the recipient's name is lightly engraved onto the pear while it is still green. After just 30 to 40 days, the lettering gradually expands with the growing skin, becoming a rare personalized signature in the luxury fruit industry. The pears are then transferred to the processing area, where every fruit undergoes another round of careful selection before receiving origin identification and being packaged according to strict standards. Generating more than $500 million in annual revenue, sweet potatoes in Japan are not just a familiar agricultural product, but were once considered a lifeline for an entire nation, helping millions of Japanese survive severe rice crop failures during the Edo period and avoid the threat of widespread famine. In the past, sweet potatoes in Japan were harvested entirely by hand from narrow soil beds, but today the industry has entered a modern era of mechanized harvesting. Unlike the United States, where large multi-row harvesting systems capable of processing 20 to 30 tons per hour are commonly used to maximize output for industrial-scale farming operations, many sweet potato regions in Japan instead rely on compact single-row diggers designed for narrow beds only around 70 to 90 centimeters wide. These machines lift the soil in thin layers and transfer the potatoes onto soil separation belts with extremely low impact, preserving the delicate skin during its final stage of development. This approach clearly reflects Japan's distinctive farming philosophy, where the goal of harvest season is focused not on volume, but on the quality and appearance of each individual potato. From the fields, the sweet potatoes are transferred into multi-stage rotating washing systems, where spiral drums continuously turn to remove soil while preserving the natural outer skin. After cleaning, the crop is separated into different production streams for starch extraction, dried slices, or fermentation into imo shochu, a traditional spirit with more than 300 years of history, transforming an ordinary root crop into a high-value product. As unbelievable as it sounds, more than 90% of the wasabi consumed around the world is actually just green-dyed horseradish mixed with mustard, because real wasabi is one of the most difficult crops ever commercialized. Unlike common culinary herbs that can grow in ordinary soil, real wasabi only develops properly when cultivated in nearly pure cold running water, maintained at temperatures between 8 and 15 degrees Celsius. If the water rises just a few degrees warmer, or the current weakens, entire fields can die from root rot and oxygen loss. And that is also why Japan has become almost the only country capable of sustaining a high-quality commercial wasabi industry. In Shizuoka Prefecture, the most famous wasabi growing region in Japan, the entire cultivation system is built around mountain streams, where rainwater and melted snow spend years filtering through layers of rock before finally reaching the roots. But clean water is only the starting condition. What truly makes wasabi so difficult to cultivate is that the entire field operates like a precisely controlled flow system. Each seedling is placed at fixed intervals across gravel beds, so that water and oxygen can circulate continuously around the roots throughout the plant's 18 to 24 months of development, an unusually long growing period for a culinary spice. By harvest season, farmers must step directly into the cold water to pull each rhizome out from the gravel without damaging the plant's extremely fragile structure. After being cleaned and trimmed, real wasabi must be used almost immediately, because its aroma and pungent compounds begin to fade rapidly once grated. Authentic wasabi is never pre-ground in advance, but freshly grated to create a smooth paste that reaches its peak fragrance within the first 10 to 15 minutes. Its demanding cultivation process, long growth cycle, and extremely short flavor lifespan are what push the price of real wasabi to around 200 to 300 USD per kilogram, many times more expensive than industrial imitation versions. But the greatest difference is not the price, but the experience itself. The heat of real wasabi rushes straight through the nose and disappears quickly, leaving behind a light and refreshing sensation. Completely different from the harsh, lingering burn of horseradish mixed with mustard that most of the world consumes every day. There's a little-known reality that few people would believe. Japan lives on soybeans, yet more than 90% of its supply is imported, because domestic cultivation is bound by standards far too strict for true mass production. Unlike the massive soybean fields of the United States, Australia, or Brazil, where the goal is maximizing output, Japan's domestic soybean harvest takes place on small plots of land, sometimes only a few hectares in size, with each individual batch monitored separately from the moment it leaves the plant. Within that environment, harvesting machines operate slowly but with high precision. The cutting blades trim the plants close to the ground before feeding the entire stalk into the threshing chamber, where the beans are separated within seconds. A powerful airflow immediately removes impurities before the beans are transferred into the storage tank above. The harvesting capacity may seem low at only around 1 to 1.5 hectares per hour, but the real difference is not speed. It is the fact that every harvested batch is already treated as the first stage of quality selection. From this first stage of selection, only a very small portion of Japan's domestic soybeans is chosen to continue the journey toward becoming natto, one of the most controversial foods in Japan, where standards are not relaxed but tightened even further at every stage of production. The beans must be small, round, and highly uniform so the bacteria can penetrate quickly and deeply, creating the foundation for natto's distinctive texture. After being cleaned in swirling water streams and softened under pressurized steam, the beans, still hot, are immediately coated with a fine layer of Bacillus subtilis culture, triggering fermentation almost instantly. Inside temperature-controlled fermentation chambers, the bacteria break down proteins and produce polyglutamic acid, the compound responsible for natto's signature sticky strands. After only around 24 hours, the finished natto emerges still slightly warm before being carefully portioned and packaged. For those who love natto, it delivers a deep, clean, and lingering umami richness that becomes strangely addictive. But for first-time eaters, it can feel like a true test of taste, where the smell and texture alone are enough to make them pause for a few seconds before deciding whether they're brave enough to try it. Located in the far north of Japan, with a cool climate year-round, summers that rarely exceed 25 degrees Celsius, and vast grasslands rarely seen in a country as compact as Japan, Hokkaido is considered the dairy kingdom of the land of the rising sun. It not only leads in production, but is also regarded as the quality benchmark for Asia's dairy industry. Each year, this region produces more than 3.8 million tons of raw milk, accounting for nearly 50% of Japan's total milk production, an overwhelming figure compared with the rest of the country. Thanks to more than 1 million hectares of agricultural land, dairy farms in Hokkaido are far larger than the Japanese average, where most farming households operate on small plots and face intense land pressure. But wide pastures are not the deciding factor. What truly turns Hokkaido milk into an icon lies in the famous livestock farming philosophy the Japanese call happy cow premium milk. Here, people believe that a happy cow produces milk of exceptional quality. And to create these happy lady cows, every process is controlled almost absolutely. On dairy farms in Hokkaido, calves are cared for like newborn athletes from the very moment they are born. Immediately after birth, each calf is separated into a sterile care area to minimize the risk of bacterial infection. Within the first 24 hours, they must drink antibody-rich colostrum, the vital source of nutrition that determines their lifelong immunity. After that, their diet is calculated precisely down to the gram, combining premium milk replacer, young hay, concentrated feed, and trace minerals. Each day, every calf is fed milk in 2 to 3 fixed sessions, almost perfectly on schedule. Sensors monitor body temperature, growth rate, and feed intake, helping farmers detect any abnormal signs within just a few hours. It takes at least 22 to 24 months for a female calf to mature physically, become pregnant for the first time, and officially enter the milk production cycle. The Japanese do not raise cows to produce milk as quickly as possible. They raise them to become strong, healthy animals capable of delivering high and stable yields for many years. A new day on any dairy farm in Hokkaido begins with cleaning. The cows' resting areas are covered with clean, dry sawdust bedding or sand, which is constantly replaced. Temperature, humidity, and airflow are always controlled by smart ventilation systems. For the Japanese, one of the biggest secrets behind creating happy cow ladies lies in the living environment. It must be clean, dry, quiet, and as stress-free as possible. Because when cows become stressed, rising cortisol levels can clearly reduce both milk quality and milk yield. But if there's one factor that makes Hokkaido milk famous for its deep, creamy richness, clean, sweet aftertaste, and distinctive aroma, it is the diet. The basic menu for cows in Hokkaido includes premium Timothy hay, fermented corn silage, protein-rich alfalfa, and a precisely blended mix of vitamins and minerals. Most of the ingredients have clear origins, with many grown directly in Hokkaido's own fields and harvested at the right stage of nutritional maturity. After that, everything is fed into the TMR system, total mixed ration, where automatic mixers blend the feed evenly so that every bite the cows eat contains the proper nutritional balance. A high-producing cow here eats more than 50 kilograms of feed per day, divided into several meals. Feeding times must be almost perfectly precise. The almost obsessive discipline of the Japanese, seen in every field, is present even in the way they feed cows. And it is also the key that unlocks the top-tier quality of Japanese products. What makes it even more special is that from late spring to early autumn, when the weather is cool and the pastures are at their best, the cows are released onto vast grasslands, almost like a form of mental therapy for these dairy ladies. Many studies in Japan show that cows allowed to graze periodically have more stable milk fat levels and a significantly lower rate of mastitis, a soft secret yet an extremely important one, behind the distinctive flavor of Hokkaido milk. When it is time for milking, the cows are guided into the milking area by an automatic guiding system. Before milking, the teats must be thoroughly disinfected with a specialized solution to remove dirt and bacteria, reduce the risk of mastitis, and prevent contamination of the first flow of milk. Many large farms use AI-integrated milking robots that can identify each individual cow, clean the teats, attach the milking equipment, and monitor milk quality in real time. Each cow is usually milked 2 to 3 times per day, producing an average of 30 to 40 liters of milk daily, while high-yielding individuals can exceed 50 liters. Immediately after leaving the udder, the milk is cooled down to 4 degrees Celsius within just a few minutes to prevent bacterial growth, then passes through a series of strict inspections before it qualifies to enter the processing line. Compared with the Netherlands, Hokkaido cow's milk is often 1.5 to 2 times more expensive, not to mention premium products such as artisanal cheese, fresh cream, and high-end butter, which are always among the most expensive in Asia, contributing to the nearly $29.6 billion in annual revenue of Japan's dairy industry. That reputation has been built over decades of accumulated technology, near absolute precision, and a philosophy of respecting livestock that few places pursue to the very end. But today, farmer aging, labor shortages, rising feed costs, and post-COVID-19 demand fluctuations are making the standards that once built this dairy kingdom increasingly difficult to maintain. The Wagyu version of pork. That is the name the culinary world has long given to Japanese black pigs, also known as kurobuta. Originating from the Berkshire breed of England and introduced to Japan in the late 19th century, this pig has been selectively bred by the Japanese for more than 100 years to become one of Asia's most premium pork lines, with prices today reaching up to $50 per kilogram, around 5 times more expensive than regular pork. In Kagoshima Prefecture, which accounts for more than 70% of Japan's kurobuta production, around 870,000 pigs are currently raised under strict standards, generating an estimated $420 million in annual revenue for local farmers. To this day, Japanese black pigs still retain the distinctive traits of their Berkshire ancestors, with jet black coats and the famous 6 white points, 6 characteristic white markings on the snout, 4 feet, and tail, giving them a truly unique appearance. But what turns them into a legend lies in the quality of the meat. Fine muscle fibers, evenly distributed intramuscular fat like marble veins, and a higher level of umami-producing amino acids than regular pork, making the meat tender and sweet without feeling greasy. The secret behind this premium pork lies in a slow raising method combined with controlled movement and carefully managed nutrition, passed down by Japanese farmers through generations. While ordinary industrial pigs can be ready for market in just 5 to 6 months, black pigs require nearly twice as long in a comfortable environment, with well-ventilated barns kept at 18 to 23 degrees Celsius and exceptionally clean air. Stocking density is kept below 12 pigs per pen to prevent stress, a silent enemy of meat quality. For at least 60 days before slaughter, the pigs are given more grains and Kagoshima sweet potatoes to enhance the sweetness and glossy texture of the fat. Japanese black pigs are highly active and need light daily movement to keep their muscles firm and their fat evenly distributed. This is also one of the secrets behind the tender, juicy, umami-rich slices of kurobuta pork. A raw egg can preserve the rich, silky texture of the yolk, its natural sweetness, and the distinctive creamy mouthfeel that a cooked egg does not have. But along with that comes the risk of salmonella, a bacterium that can cause serious food poisoning. That is why, in most countries, health authorities advise against eating raw eggs regularly. But in Japan, things are completely different. Every year, Japanese people consume more than 20 billion eggs, among the highest levels in the world, and it is estimated that nearly half of them are eaten raw in various forms. In fact, tamago kake gohan, rice topped with raw egg, has been a national breakfast dish for millions of Japanese people for generations. So what makes eggs in Japan different from the rest of the world, allowing raw egg consumption to become so normalized? To find the answer, let's begin where this entire industry takes shape: the industrial hatchery. The difference appears from the very first seeds. Eggs used for hatching must come from parent flocks that have been strictly controlled for disease, genetics, and nutrition. They are then further disinfected with UV light or formalin vapor before officially entering the incubator. Modern incubation systems maintain a temperature of around 37.5 degrees, along with extremely stable humidity and oxygen levels, while automatically turning the eggs dozens of times a day so the embryos can develop evenly. After about 21 days, the eggs begin to crack. And if human society once held a preference for sons over daughters in many Eastern cultures, then in the world of the egg industry, the balance is completely reversed. Whether in China, Japan, or any other country, male chicks have almost no value, simply because they cannot lay eggs. All male chicks are culled immediately after birth, and the brief time they see the light inside the hatchery is counted only in seconds. By contrast, all female chicks are health-checked, vaccinated, and automatically sorted before being transferred to rearing farms, where they become biological machines, supplying eggs for Japan's food industry. Compared with many other countries, Japan's industrial chicken farming system is not too different in structure. But to produce eggs that can be eaten raw safely, almost every step is pushed to a far more extreme standard. From the quality of drinking water, feed, and air, to bacterial control inside the barns. At first, the chicks are raised together in high-temperature brooding areas. As their down gradually gives way to full feathers, and their immune systems become more stable, they are moved to rearing houses to prepare for the egg-laying stage. About 5 to 6 months after arriving at the farm, the hens begin laying the first eggs of their lives. A hen can lay almost every day, producing around 300 eggs per year. On farms with hundreds of thousands of hens, daily output can reach millions of eggs, enough to supply an entire city. So how are that many eggs collected? Technology takes care of it. Automatic conveyor systems move the eggs away from the nests just minutes after they are laid, minimizing contact with manure, dust, or bacteria inside the barn. Immediately after leaving the farm, the eggs are transported to a processing facility in specialized refrigerated trucks. Here, they go through a series of steps that look more like a semiconductor production line than an ordinary food factory. Washing with warm disinfecting water, drying with clean air, and high-speed LED candling to detect shell cracks, blood spots, or foreign matter inside. Many modern systems also use AI cameras capable of inspecting tens of thousands of eggs per hour. Any eggs that fail to meet the standard are removed immediately. It is this almost obsessive salmonella control process that has helped Japanese eggs become one of the safest types of eggs in the world for raw consumption. In international markets, a tray of premium Japanese eggs can cost several times more than ordinary industrial eggs in China or Southeast Asia. But for Japanese consumers, they are not just buying an egg. They are buying enough peace of mind to crack a raw egg directly over a bowl of hot rice. In restaurants across Japan, it is easy to find bowls of tamago kake gohan made with nothing more than hot rice, soy sauce, and a raw egg freshly cracked into the center. Even when eaten raw, Japanese eggs have almost no strong fishy smell. Instead, they are surprisingly rich, sweet, and smooth. However, for those unfamiliar with the slimy texture of raw egg white, the experience can be a real culture shock. Many people may not know this, but Japan consumes more than 70% of the world's freshwater eel supply, more than any other country on Earth. At one point, the Japanese eel, Anguilla japonica, was even listed as endangered due to decades of heavy consumption and overfishing in Japan. Today, Japan has successfully developed commercial eel farming. But there is one fascinating detail. Most eel juveniles still have to be caught from the wild. The reason is that the reproductive life cycle of this fish remains extremely mysterious. Young eels, known as glass eels, are caught when they are only as thin as noodles and nearly transparent like glass. Yet their price can reach 5,000 to 35,000 USD per kilogram, making them as valuable as white gold during years of shortage. Compared to many other fish species, eel farming is far more difficult because eels are extremely sensitive to water conditions. Temperature, dissolved oxygen, pH levels, and ammonia must all be monitored almost in real time. Even a small fluctuation can cause an entire tank to stop feeding, become stressed, or suffer disease outbreaks. Even feeding is treated like a precise nutritional science. The mixture of fish meal, enzymes, and probiotics is not simply blended together, but activated inside rotating tanks to create a soft, microbe-rich feed before being delivered into the ponds. The moment the feed touches the water, the young eels immediately gather into dense groups, nibbling and circling continuously like a perfectly programmed movement. After around 7 to 8 months, once the eels reach about 200 to 300 grams each, the system switches to automated harvesting. The water level is gradually lowered so the eels gather at one point, then they are guided through smooth pipes directly into the processing area. There, the eels are washed with high-pressure cold water to remove their slippery outer layer, before being rapidly stunned with ice-cold temperatures to preserve the texture of the meat. Next, the eels are filleted in the traditional kanto style from the back, helping keep the body intact for the skewering process. Inside the grilling section, the eels are cooked at around 230 to 250 degrees Celsius to firm up the surface, then dipped into kabayaki sauce, made from soy sauce, mirin, sugar, and dashi. The grilling and sauce dipping cycle is repeated multiple times, creating a glossy brown skin while keeping the meat inside soft and rich, before the final products are packaged under strict hygienic conditions. Whale meat, once a strategic source of protein in the post-war era and a common staple in the lunches of millions of Japanese schoolchildren, as familiar as canned Spam is in the United States, has now declined to record lows, with annual production falling below 2,000 tons. That amounts to less than 10 grams per person per year, lighter than a single AA battery. Despite a steadily shrinking market, tens of millions of dollars in annual government subsidies continue to support the Kyoto Senpaku fleet, enabling voyages from spring through late autumn. Beyond commercial goals, this serves to maintain Japan's offshore processing logistics and distant water harvesting capabilities, an important contingency should imported food supplies be disrupted. At sea, the harvesting process is carried out with the precision of a heavy industrial assembly line. The crew, often marine mechanical specialists, operate like skilled technicians. A specialized harpoon is used to secure the target, after which the tail is fastened with high-tensile steel cables, combined with flotation buoys and hydraulic winches to haul the massive body onto the stern slipway. As soon as they are brought on board, the multi-ton carcasses are hoisted by crane directly into the vessel's onboard processing facility. Here, a race against time begins. The entire butchering process must be completed within 6 hours, before heat retained within the thick fat layer alters the muscle structure and degrades the meat's quality from the inside out. Inside the cutting room, workers use the umibocho, a large, wide-bladed knife made of ultra-sharp steel, mounted on a wooden handle over 2 meters long. As the skin and fat are gradually separated from the skeletal frame, precise cuts reveal the most valuable portions of meat. The most prized is the tail section, known for its fine marbling, often valued on par with premium Wagyu beef. The meat is then transferred immediately into deep freezing chambers at around 60 degrees Celsius, a temperature that minimizes the formation of large ice crystals, preserving muscle fiber integrity and maintaining freshness for up to 2 years in frozen storage. Canned products, meanwhile, can last up to 3 years while still retaining their sensory quality. If you're curious about the taste, this red meat is often described as the venison of the ocean, thanks to its firm texture, rich flavor, high protein content, and relatively low fat. Notably, whale meat contains a compound called balanine, still not fully understood, but believed by scientists to contribute to the species' remarkable ability to withstand extreme pressure in the deep sea.